You saved for decades. You were disciplined when others weren't. You made the right calls, year after year, and then, in the first year you stopped working. You paid more in taxes than almost any year you were employed. That's not a scare tactic. That's what the math does, by default, when nobody models it in advance. I've spent over 30 years watching how economic policy affects ordinary people. And the pattern I keep seeing is always the same. The rules aren't hidden, but they're never explained clearly until it's too late to use them. Today, I want to walk you through 10 structural upgrades, not lifestyle changes, not luxury purchases, 10 quiet, behind-the-scenes decisions that determine whether the money you saved keeps working for you or slowly gets redirected somewhere else. And here's why timing matters more than most people realize. The moment you announce your retirement, the calendar fills up, trips get planned, family makes requests, spending begins before the structure is in place. That window, the weeks just before you leave, is the most valuable planning window of your life. Most people use it to celebrate. The ones who build real retirement security use it to restructure. Let's start with the decision that shapes everything else, your withdrawal strategy. While you were working, the financial question was simple. Save as much as you can, put it in the right accounts. The day you retire, that question flips completely. Now the question is, which account do I pull from first, and in what order? Most people default to their traditional IRA or 401k. It's where the bulk of the money sits, but every dollar pulled from a pre-tax account becomes taxable income. That income stacks with Social Security. It affects Medicare premiums. It can push you into a higher bracket for years. At first glance, that may seem like a small detail, but that first withdrawal decision sets the tax tone for the next 30 years. The upgrade here isn't complicated. It's simply having a plan before you pull the first dollar. Which accounts do you draw from in year one? Where is the best window? For Roth conversions, how do you keep taxable income low while you're still in the lower brackets? The people who get this right early are not geniuses. They're just the ones who asked the right questions before the urgency disappeared. Now, if you're retiring before 65, your health coverage is about to become your most immediate financial problem. Employer coverage ends. Medicare hasn't started, and that gap can be expensive if you don't plan for it. Marketplace insurance, under the Affordable Care Act, still offers subsidies, but, and this is critical, those subsidies are calculated based on your income, which means the withdrawal strategy we just discussed directly determines how much healthcare costs you in those gap years. With the right income structure, the savings can reach into the tens of thousands. With the wrong structure, the subsidies disappear entirely. This is where decisions interact. One choice downstream changes the cost of another. That's the part most online calculators will never show you. Over the years, I've noticed something interesting. Most retirees think about taxes once a year, in April. By then, the year's income is already set. The decisions that could have saved them real money are no longer available. Retirement tax planning is not an annual event. It's a 30-year strategy. Bracket management, Roth conversions, capital gains harvesting, IRMAA thresholds, which determine your Medicare surcharges. All of it starts in year one, and the baseline you set in that first year ripples forward into every year that follows. Now, before we go further, I want to mention something that almost nobody talks about up front. Your beneficiary designations. Most people filled out that form when they opened their 401k 20 years ago and never touched it again. Here's what most people don't know. That designation overrides your will. It overrides your trust, and it doesn't matter what your estate documents say. If that form is outdated, the account goes where the old form says, to an ex-spouse, to the wrong child, or into a tax situation your heirs were completely unprepared for. This takes 30 minutes to fix. It costs nothing, and it is one of the highest impact actions on this entire list. But that's not the part that caught my attention, the part that stays with me. After 30 years of watching families navigate this, is upgrade number 10, the survivor plan. Most couples plan together. One spouse handles the finances, the other trusts. The plan is solid, and it usually is, as long as both spouses are alive. But here's what the math does. When one spouse passes, filing status shifts from joint to single. Tax brackets compress. Immediately, required minimum distributions continue on the full traditional balance. Social Security taxation thresholds drop. IRMAA surcharges hit earlier and harder. The surviving spouse can end up paying higher effective tax rates than the couple ever paid together on the same income, with one fewer person in the household. And this isn't a planning failure. This is what the default math produces when nobody modeled it in advance. For many couples, this is the clearest argument for accelerating Roth conversions early, while both spouses are still alive, while the brackets are still wider. The real question is what happens next if you don't act on this now? Because the answer is, the problem doesn't announce itself. It just quietly grows in the background for 15 to 20 years. So, here is what I'd leave you with. The 10 upgrades I've described today are not complicated. They don't require a finance degree. They require something harder, which is doing them before the celebration starts. Before the world has an opinion on how you should spend your time, before the social pressure makes the quiet thinking much harder to do. The retirees I've watched build real, lasting security share one thing. They treated those final weeks before retirement as the most valuable strategic window of their financial lives. Not for buying things, not for telling people, but for quietly getting the structure right before the noise began.